What's up? I'm Amanda.
I'm Emily.
I'm Adriana.
Adriana.
I didn't know.
And we're two moms, one mic,
And me.
and featuring Adriana
So
today.
today we're three moms, and we're gonna have a very serious conversation. Actually, I know we're like laughing, and it's good to laugh sometimes through things, but this is actually a very serious and important topic to discuss, and we're very thankful to have you today. So if you want to introduce yourself, and we can get the ball going, and hopefully by the end of it, we're still laughing.
Oh,
Maybe I don't know.
No, we will be. So I'm Adriana. I actually went to high school with Emily. So we've known each other for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I have 3 kids. They're 7, 5, and 2. And I own my own business. I am a makeup artist and a hairstylist.
Yes.
That's me.
She does great work, by the way. We can also plug her business. We will do that. See, we're still laughing because I'm telling you, this episode is going to take a turn.
Yeah.
So the topic, I guess to sum it up today, is maternal mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And Amanda and I have spoken about this a few times, and Amanda's touched upon her struggles, and it's a very important topic. A lot of women unfortunately suffer in silence. A lot of women are unfortunately overlooked, and unfortunately there's not a lot of research and information in this topic. And I think we can all agree on that there's a huge gap in the system, and it unfortunately fails mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And in your case, it was mother-to-be because this was while you were pregnant.
Yes.
So a lot of the times the conversation is always about postpartum and, the baby blues and postpartum depression. But I think this insight is really something that's going to hit home with some people. Because I think when you're pregnant, you're scared to talk about how you feel because of the stigma of, we were talking off camera that pregnant women are happy women.
Yeah.
And that's the illusion that we need to put out. And we're going to hear how she was not very happy. So you can take it away and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I've obviously had 3 pregnancies, and I found towards the end of my second pregnancy with my son, I started to not feel very good, like towards the end, like I would say the last 2 months of the pregnancy.
So your first pregnancy was A-okay?
It was A-okay, it was fine. I had some postpartum depression after that, but it's a big community. There's a lot of places you can go talk to. There's a lot of things you can go talk about.
Yeah,
and
resources and stuff.
Yeah, there's resources. There's like even Facebook groups, things like that. And I remember with my son Zach, probably about 2 months 2 months towards the end, I'm like, something's off.
So now this is your second pregnancy. So
My
first
second one.
pregnancy, A-okay. Second pregnancy, towards the end, you started to feel something.
Yeah,
Something
something had changed. It almost didn't feel like I was me anymore. And like, I get it. When you're pregnant, you
just
automatically
automatically
don't
don't feel like you.
No.
Yeah.
Don't
and
feel like
you
Yeah.
feel like you're a shared space.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, I felt like I was sharing space with more than just my child. And I'm like, something's weird.
Yeah.
I started getting weird thoughts. Like, you'd be sitting there and, you cut your toddler's apple wrong, for example, and you're like, oh, he's mad. And then you hear this little thing in your head, and like, you're a terrible mom. Like, anybody would have cut that apple better than you. And you're like, whoa, what the hell? What is going on here?
It's like guilt on
Yeah.
steroids.
And like, I remember I started telling a few people, and they're just like, oh, it's probably just the hormones. Don't worry about it. Like, it's just hormones. I'm like, okay, maybe it's just hormones.
Yeah.
So that's fine. And then I remember it was July, and I just could not get these things out of my head that I was feeling. Like, I could not get how I was feeling out of my head, and I wanted it to stop. And then that's when I would say, like, the middle of July, it took like a turn, like a bad turn, where I'm like, I no longer, like, this is not normal to feel like this during a pregnancy. There has to be something wrong with you. You should not be here anymore.
How many months, like how far along were you in that pregnancy?
So it was like, I would say mid-July, and then Zach was born the beginning of September.
Oh, okay. So you were
So it
third
was like the home
trimester.
stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Portion.
literally home stretch.
Okay.
And I just remember my Google searches changed. Because I'm like, why am I feeling this way? I cannot find Google searches. I started looking for Facebook groups. I'm like, how I'm feeling, like, I'm not seeing it. So it's only validating the fact that I'm like, something is wrong.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not gonna go to my OB. What if she thinks I'm crazy? Like,
Yeah. Now
what
the fear kicks in.
What if
We're
she
like,
judges me? And like the few people I told, I was scared, obviously, to tell my husband because I'm like, you know, I'm carrying his child, and now I'm not in a good place.
On
Like,
top of the fact, like, you already have a child.
I already have a child.
So you're mothering and
I had an 18-month
still
old
brewing another
Yeah.
child. Yeah.
Like, what was he, 20 months at the time, maybe?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're busy with him. Nobody needs to worry about me. And then I remember it was one day, it was our friend's birthday party, and I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, this is it for me.
Oh, it's still early. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get
No,
through
I
it.
had to get through the first one.
We should have got a
The
tissue
first
box. We're
one.
not
No.
even that, like, the
No.
serious
I
one.
know, because I'm wearing mascara and it's not waterproof, so no.
We
We don't
have to
do
the
that.
triangle.
We don't do
the
that.
triangle.
We
Candace
don't
would be so
do
proud.
that with the Kardashians. We just do this. There we go. The Kardashians get it out of the way. Yeah. And I remember I Googled it. I'm like, I'm this many weeks along. How can you do it without killing your baby? And it was head trauma. That was it. It was head trauma. So I remember I locked myself in the bathroom and I bashed my head against the counter. Like, hard. And it didn't work. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that again because that was really, again, painful, naturally. And I remember my husband was like banging on the door saying, like, what are you doing? And he goes, if you don't stop, I'm going to tell your parents. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it's, but
Even
like,
at 30, parents at
I'm
30.
like 30. At 30, it's like, if you don't stop, I'm going to tell your parents. And I'm like, okay. I guess I'm not doing this. Because it's like the old Italian thing. Like, your parents don't do mental health.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you can't tell your
That whole
parents.
generation.
They're gonna, like, you know, they're either not gonna believe you, or they're going to think, you know,
They fail somehow.
yes, this is
They
their
always make it
fault.
about
Oh
them.
my goodness! And then it's like, who did you tell? Da 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 da. And I remember we had to leave for my friend's birthday party, and I remember I got dressed, I fixed my hair to cover the welt. And I just remember we were driving to Mississauga and we had to pull over because I had to vomit because I was so sick from bashing your head against the corner of the bathroom countertop.
Did you have a concussion?
I mean, I'm assuming so. What are you
Yeah.
going to do? Go to the hospital and be
Yeah.
like, hi, I'm
Yeah.
pregnant and there's a child at home and I'm doing this to myself? Like, your biggest fear is what if they take your kid away from you?
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I clearly don't sound stable at this point, or like mentally capable of taking care of a child. Like, I know it sounds selfish, but you're like, what if they take your kid? Like,
No,
my
I
husband,
don't think that sounds
right?
selfish at all. You're actually
And
you're logical while being irrational at the same time. Like,
Yes.
that's the weird
Yeah.
balance in all of this.
and I remember we were at the party, and like my husband was just like, you know, like making sure I'm okay, and I kept going to the bathroom to throw up, and then but people wanted to come with me, like, oh, you're going to the bathroom, I'm going to come with you. I'm like, no, it's okay, it's just pregnancy things, don't worry about it. I had to go throw up, like,
Yeah.
you know, and we were at like a restaurant.
Yeah.
So after that, it was like, okay, I'm just going to ride out this 2 months. And the first opportunity, they were like, did you want to deliver like a few days early? Yes, I want to deliver, like, absolutely. And then I felt great. I felt really good. And then about a month later, postpartum depression kicks in, and it was very hard. And like, but my husband was really good. He started doing like night feedings with me because we were doing like combo feeding. So he would do the night feedings to help me out. We would rotate like every other night kind of thing, so I could get some sleep, because like
Yeah.
I probably just needed sleep, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how you feel. I started going to therapy, and it's a family friend, and she's amazing. And you know, I got to talk through like how I was feeling, how you feel as a mom, and this and that. So I felt like I had healed so much of that.
Therapy works.
It does.
Just saying,
It really does.
Really works.
You know,
I love my therapist. I really do. We're besties.
And then we got pregnant again, and and I remember it was probably 6 or 8 weeks. I'm like, oh no, yeah,
I'm gonna interrupt.
yeah.
Were you nervous?
Love you. Put your hand up. Love it.
Teacher, thanks. Were you nervous at all to get pregnant for a third time? Like, or when you first got pregnant, were you excited right away, or were you like, oh my God, am I gonna feel that way again? Like, what was your thought when you got pregnant with number 3 initially? Did you think about what you went through with number 2 at all?
Oh well, okay. Honestly, my initial thought was like, do we need a new car? And like, how am I going to tell my parents who raised an only child that like there's going to be a third one popping around? So like we had other things. It didn't even really cross my mind
about how you felt.
No, because I had healed that. Like,
okay,
I didn't know what it was.
You just took it as like a soul incident
like,
and didn't think that it would translate to another pregnancy.
No, you're like, okay, that was my time with that. It's over. We shut that door.
Okay. That's
journey's done. And then it was like 6 or 8 weeks in. I was like, oh, okay, something feels different again. I was like, oh no.
It's like Jack Nicholson, The Shining.
Yeah, like literally it popped. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to, whatever. Just passage, you know, old wounds are coming up. Don't worry about it. And then I remember this thing. I was 8 weeks. And I was just in my room. I was like in the kitchen and I heard this voice. And I'm like looking around. I'm like, what the hell? I even went outside. I'm like, what is it? And then in the corner of my backyard, I saw this thing. And I'm like, I can't even, like, it's so hard to describe what it looked like. He was, I mean, I know it sounds crazy. But, like, had a arched back, and he was very, like, almost like a gargoyle.
Yeah.
But, like, more humanized than that. Like, I think Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But, like, scary version. M. Night Shyamalan version of it. Seriously. And he would talk to me, and he's like, we're going to be best friends. And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I'm in my backyard talking to the corner.
Yeah.
Right? But to me, it didn't feel like it was a corner.
Yeah.
Like, it was an empty corner. And I'm like, okay, go back inside. And I sit down and I'm like, this is getting effed up. That is weird. And I remember I told we had the same OB. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was like,
me too.
Oh, we had the same one? Oh my God. There we go. So I remember she's like, I'm at the appointment and she's like, is there anything else you want to share? I'm like,
I remember, sorry. But like, because I think we had like an appointment like on the same day or the same week.
We did.
And mine was like 10 minutes. She's like, yeah, I was there for 3 hours. I was like, 3
Oh,
hours?
no, I was there for 2
an
hours.
appointment that long.
With that OB, I was always in and out.
No.
Yeah. But
I was never in and out.
I'm really happy though that she like kept you there. And I didn't think you were going that way with her because I know how she is.
Yeah, no, yeah. And
so tell us more.
And it was like, I remember she was like, everything's great, da-da-da. Is there anything else? Any problems you're having? I'm like, so, yeah, this thing is starting to follow me around, and I know that's going to sound really crazy.
Oh my gosh.
And he's telling me to do some, like, really awful things. And she's just like, oh. And I remember she just went to go talk to the secretary. She came in with paper, closed the door, and said, let's talk. And she started saying, like, have you ever experienced this before? And da-da-da-da-da. And I was going through what I had with Zach, and she goes, I'm pretty sure it is this. I think you're having a psychosis, like a prenatal psychosis. But you had it with your other thing. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That would have been great when I was crying. That would really help me a lot. And I remember she was like, okay, so you had this kind of feeling with Zach and whatever. And she goes, well, if you were having a psychosis with Zach, yeah, you're going to have it with this pregnancy. Because if you continue getting pregnant, it comes back worse every time. So she goes, so why are you pregnant right now? And I said,
because this is the first time I'm hearing any of this information.
Yeah,
that's
and I was like,
why.
yeah. I'm like, because this is really new. What do you mean? She goes like, that should have been close the doors, shut the lights on the store, sell the business. So she's like, you're like 8 weeks pregnant at this time. I'm like, yeah. And so I'm like, there's obviously not continuing the pregnancy wasn't an option for me. Like, I'm not a quitter. And I know, like, I know there are reasons to terminate. I just did not think this was going to be one of them because I'm like, I already went through it. I went through it with Zach. It's great. She goes, you went through it for 2 months. You now have 7 months to go.
Yeah.
And she goes, this is the start. This is the walk in the park. But she goes, like, you can't do this unassisted. You're going to need medicine. You're going to need some form of therapy. And she goes, are you ready to fight? And I go, well, yeah, do I have a choice? And she goes, well, the alternative is you don't fight and see what happens. So she wasn't kidding me about the fight that I had in front of me. Like, it was a fight.
See, like, we always talk about how you just
Yeah.
become a vessel for life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, when you're pregnant, you just become a vessel.
Yeah.
But in this situation, you literally are not just fighting for your child.
Yeah.
You are very much fighting for your own life because you don't know how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't kidding. Like,
no, she was not kidding. And she goes, it's different for everybody. So, somehow I ended up on Facebook. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, this is really the first time I'm actually talking about this. And I remember it being like, they say, okay, this is where you turn to your village. I'm like, I can't turn to a village right now.
Yeah.
No one's going to believe I'm going through this. So the first thing was we started calling crisis centers. We started calling, like, any doctor that was willing to see me. And then the first 2 doctors I meet are men who tell me, just letting you know right off the bat before I assess you, it's a 12-month wait list to get any form of care. I'm like, amazing. The kid's going to be out and about by then. Like, walking?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, what? And they said, so, like, is it even worth us continuing with the assessment? I was like, well, there has to be a way to get over this. And he's like, well, it's only 7 months of your life. Like, can't you just how do you just not suck it up? You're a mom. They're like, I even had one guy say, moms are so strong. Like, strong like a mother.
I hate men.
Yeah.
I just hate men.
I just remember,
I just hate them.
the second guy, I was just like,
F you.
yeah, I really hope, I said to him, I'm like, I really hope you're not married, and I sure as hell hope you don't have a daughter.
Please don't reproduce.
Yeah, like,
Please just
let's
don't do that.
tie you up, snip it right now.
Yeah.
And I remember we were going through different channels, and I kept getting halted because of the wait list and because of the funding for, it's not going to turn into a political conversation because everyone knows how I stand on that. But the funding for mental health got cut. And when the first thing that got cut was the prenatal care because most women need it postpartum. So what happened is we had to kind of me and the OB, we had to make a kind of controversial decision, and I had to have a psychotic breakdown in her office. And that would have put me straight to the hospital on a 12-hour psychiatric hold. And I remember she said, go have a nice lunch, go get a couple of things you need to do done, and then drive yourself to the hospital and voluntarily check yourself in, because that'll be getting you a lot more help than if I just force it. Yeah, if somebody were to drop you off, you have to voluntarily go do it yourself. And I said, okay, cool. And I remember I went to go get, like, Longo sushi. And I was like, I really like Longo's California rolls. And then I went home, I changed into a comfy outfit, I grabbed my phone charger, and I drove myself to the hospital. And I mean,
how many months were you at this point now? Or was this like weeks?
3 or 4 months.
Okay.
I was pretty. It was really. I didn't. I don't think I knew I was pregnant. Like, I didn't know I was having a girl yet. I don't think so. I don't. That's the problem with this thing is you don't remember. It takes over your brain so much.
Yeah,
I remember.
It's like a blur.
I remember things it would say to me, and I remember how I felt, but I don't remember. Like, I just felt like time was passing, and I was just watching it from the window, right? But I was there, but it was just, you're not there. And, like, I couldn't tell you if we went to parties or anything during that time. I couldn't tell you what happened. If I went to a wedding, nothing.
Yeah.
And I remember I was sitting in the psych ward, and they had my arm tied to a chair because that's what they do. They have to restrain you when you're there. And, like, I was in the mental health unit of the hospital, and I had a cop with me because just for safety reasons and because I wasn't, like, screaming or doing anything that. I was just sitting there on my phone. I was texting you, like, things that were going on, things that I was seeing, stories. And I remember it was like, I had been there already for like 5 or 6 hours. I said to the nurse, I'm like, I'm hungry. She goes, you can't leave. And I wanted Tim Hortons, and they're like, you can't leave. And then they gave me a sandwich, and I don't remember what was in it, but I said, it was like a tuna sandwich or something. And I said, I don't think I can eat that because I'm pregnant. I don't know. And she goes, that's like all we have. And then they gave me bread, and I just ate like a little dinner roll.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't paying for a dinner, so I couldn't get food. And then I think I was about 8 hours in, I remember my mom was trying to call me and I couldn't answer the phone because like my parents did not know what was going on. We were hiding it from them, and then Pat said, "I think we have to tell your parents." Like I think, oh no,
We're still here.
he's like, I think we have to tell your parents.
Keep going.
So he told them, obviously, not me. And naturally, I think their reaction was that they flipped out. I know my dad flipped out, and he wanted to, like, break me out of there, and my daughter's not going to be in a psych ward or a holding area and all that. He was so angry because, like,
it's such, like, a pride thing.
It is. Like, and I remember when I got out, the first thing they asked was, who knows? How many people have you told that you were there? Okay, keep it that way. I'm like, who am I telling? Like, nobody. Okay, keep it that way.
Yeah,
like,
it's
was
so like embarrassing for them or something.
Right. But and you truly think like, oh my gosh, like what have I done? Like, what is going on for me to deserve this? And I remember the nurse kept saying to me, okay, I hope that they can see you soon because the doctor right now is really, really good, and like this is it. Like this is the start of everything. Like everything's going to change now. And they hyped it up so much, and then the doctor changed shift, and she turned to me and said, I'm so sorry because I know that the doctor that's coming, a lot of people don't like. Like, she goes, like, a lot of us don't like working with him, whatever.
Oh, Lord.
And he wouldn't even see me. Actually, he came to see me, and he goes, so I heard you're suicidal. I'm like,
well, that's
yeah.
scary.
He's like, cool. But I was. But I'd been hiding it. And he goes, I heard you're suicidal because that's what the doctor had put down on my notes or my OB. And he goes, cool. So when are you doing it? I was like,
what?
I go,
repeat what you said
I don't
before.
know.
I hate men.
I don't know. And he goes, what weapon? What's the weapon? And he's like, and I'm like,
is it because he
I
didn't
wish the
believe
Spotify
you,
people
or
could see like my face.
and he
So
goes,
it's like, no, but the problem is like you're undermining someone's thoughts and feelings, regardless.
But is it because he didn't
Like,
believe you? Like, what's the context?
I couldn't have any conversation with the guy. And he goes, okay, so you have no motivation, no weapon. He goes, come back when you have both.
I want to cry. I honestly feel like I'm gonna cry right now for you.
No.
Because like, as someone who had a suicidal thought before and knowing how real it was, and someone did that to you, like, I'm so sorry, honestly.
No,
like,
it's fine, but like, it's like
obviously that man has never gone through like any mental health, anything,
No,
and like
he's doing it as a
that's how he,
textbook.
like,
and like you think
He's checking symptoms.
no,
of
but
God.
you know,
so
no,
sorry,
but no,
like,
but you know what?
brutal.
No, but okay, here's the thing. It comes from a place. No,
I have tissues
therapy
in
is
here.
healing.
Oh,
No,
now we're prepared this time. Last time
I
we
have some
were.
in mine too, the exact one. No, it comes from a place of privilege. He is privileged
Yeah,
to
honestly.
have never known someone or had somebody go through it. And that's what I've learned. It's people make these comments to you because they come from a place of privilege. It's a privilege that you don't have. It's a privilege that I don't have.
You know what, Adriana? Like, I've been around people that have had mental health before I've ever felt my way during postpartum. And yeah, I've had like thoughts about it. Like I had a friend of mine, like their father committed suicide, and you know, like when it happened, okay, this was a long time ago. I just couldn't understand how someone could commit suicide. I'm just
And
like,
now you like
and now I
empathize
do.
with them.
But I would never comment on it to those people. It was me in my own head being like, I just don't understand how someone can commit suicide. For the longest time, I used to tell myself, but why? Why do people do this? How? Like, but I wouldn't say that.
No,
I wouldn't go
I agree.
because I wasn't in their shoes. So it just angers me that they undermine it.
It's like, I don't know,
feelings.
having a bad day. I don't know what it was. And I just remember, you think that you're getting to the tunnel. Like the tunnel, you see the light, and then the train comes and like runs you over.
Yeah, honestly.
Right? Like that's how you feel because you're like, we're here. Like I did this. I opened, like I did this whole hole to get the help.
Yeah.
And then he left. And the assistant comes in, one of the student doctor therapies, therapists, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were. And I remember she was wearing jeans and a black t-shirt. And he says, take this pill. This will make you feel better. And I'm like, can I get the name of it, please? And she gave it to me. And I was like, something in my head was like, don't take it. Like, don't do it. And I was like, can I look it up? Like, something is weird. And she goes, honestly, she's like, he just said to give this to you. I'm like, he didn't even inspect me. He didn't really get to know anything about me. He just gave me this pill. And she goes, he just says, if you want it to be over, just here, this'll end all your thoughts. And I'm like, okay. And I remember saying, something's telling me not to feel comfortable. She went back to me, goes, well, if she doesn't want to take it, then she doesn't want to get better. So off you go. And I just remember I sat in my car and I looked up the name, and it said taking one pill, there was an 80% chance of causing an abortion. And I was like, thank God I did not take this.
But then, okay, and I don't even know if you have an answer. If the doctor did that without your knowledge, without your consent, made you have an abortion, basically, if he did that, let's say you took it, like, isn't he then liable? Like, do doctors have to communicate things? You can't just give you meds and say, take this.
Yeah.
Like, you should have to tell me what this is going to do to my body.
So
I don't, like, is he still a doctor? Like, I need to report this
but
bad.
No, but here's the problem.
Who is he? I'm going to the hospital right now. After this episode.
But here's
You know what? Call your cousin that works at the hospital and find this dude.
I'm going
We're
there.
going on a mission, everybody.
Yeah, we're making signs. We ride at dawn. Like,
sorry, I'm so
all the
angry.
pregnant women are uniting right now.
I'm so
whatever. I don't even care if you're pregnant or not. If you have ovaries, let's go.
See, I told you we'd still be laughing.
See,
right?
you have to. You gotta keep
You
it
have
light
to laugh.
sometimes.
You have to laugh through. You know what? Honestly, what do we always say? A little bit of trauma makes you funny.
Yeah.
Makes you funny. Right? A little bit of trauma makes you funny. I just remember I was like, thank God I didn't take it. But at the end of the day, it wasn't him forcing it down my throat. It would have been me putting it in my mouth.
Yeah.
So, I just thought in my head, okay.
But you trust doctors, is
Right.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
And I just remember I went back to the OB and I said, hey, funny story, here's what happened. And she was like, this is unacceptable. Made some phone calls. Next thing you know, I am getting a social worker because they have to make sure that I am not a threat to my children, which I wasn't, because apparently there's two forms of this. There's the one where you become a threat to your family, you become extremely aggressive, things like that, or you have the one where you're just a threat to yourself. So I had the version where I was a threat to myself, and I had a woman diagnose me, and then that's when I was, after a very brief interview, I was diagnosed with prenatal psychosis, depression, anxiety, and paranoia. So I got like all four of them.
You're the whole DSM.
I'm always an overachiever, so I would get all of them. So, and it was related to my hormones, because one thing that happens in my pregnancy is I have way more hormones than I need. I'm always registering as hormones for triplets, and that happens right off the bat. And then at the 12-week mark of your pregnancy, from what we learned, is your hormones take a little bit of a dip. Like they start leveling out. Mine don't do that. Okay. Mine would just keep going. So naturally, having all that hormone in your body is going to start affecting you. Yeah. And they actually said it could be related back to before my oldest son, Noah, I had a miscarriage. And what they found was very strange about that, going through all my charts and information, was that my hormones never stopped. Even though I had miscarried, there was no heartbeat, there was nothing.
So you were constantly carrying
level. My hormones were still registering that there was an alive baby in my body.
Wow.
And my hormones were still going up. Okay. So they thought that was it. So when I had like a DNC, they actually had to give me, I took something to cut my hormones. So it's like, perfect, we know the problem. It's my hormones. We can fix this problem, no issue. I can go on a pill that kind of like regulates my hormones. So let's just check the baby first to make sure, the hormones are the problem.
Sorry, pause. How many months are you now? Wait, you're still 4 or 5?
Yeah. This was like literally the next week. I got seen.
4 months. Okay.
And my social worker, I would check in with her, I think every other Wednesday. And it was COVID, still technically COVID time. So I would, it would be like a phone call. It was always a phone call.
Like you never met.
No, I never. No, everything was always through Zoom or Meets or whatever it was, or it was a phone call. And I got a therapist, and my therapist had just come back from mat leave, from her first mat leave, so it was like amazing. Yeah. But the problem that I ran into is that there is no prenatal mental health care. Yeah. So although she did have some prenatal experience, I had to actually use my postpartum care prenatally, if that's a word.
Sure,
prenatal.
We'll go with that, yeah.
Right. So if I develop postpartum depression, I could not get care for it. I was not covered because I already got my postpartum benefits, my OHIP, whatever. It was already used. So I didn't qualify for anything
So you better make sure that that care lasted you all the way through.
Literally. So it was, we're going to deal with this, and we're going to learn how to cope. And I even remember when I gave birth to Gianna, they gave me a stack like this of like, if you're feeling this, this is what to do. Like, here's your reminder things.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, you start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But they kept telling me, they're like, it's going to get worse. We can start you on medication. Let's check the baby and see how she's doing. So then I get my test results back for Gianna, and I'm having what they call a super pregnancy or an A+ pregnancy, meaning her test scores are at an A+, a 10 out of 10. She's like chemically and biologically perfect. My uterus, everything is biologically and chemically perfect. So how do we touch my hormones now when it's perfect?
Yeah.
We can't play with my hormones. Okay. So now we have to move on to another route of playing up a mental health disorder and hoping that we're going to find other ways to manage the hormones.
Yeah.
So we started like tracking things I would do during the day and seeing how I would feel throughout. So we learned the 2 ways that I managed my hormones and I could suppress what was going on in my brain was through work and through exercise. So the exercise would help with my hormones. Yeah. And for some reason, I guess because I'm so focused when I work, I was so busy that when I'm like doing my emails or when I'm at work, I could fully suppress this, they told me to give it a name, and Vanderpump Rules fan, we called it, I'm like, they're like, what do you want to name him or her? And I said, it's my dark passenger. I have to put some sort of like thing to this, like comedy to this, because like, is this really what's happening in my brain, in my head, right? Like, how do you even, you can't, that's the thing is, everyone's like, well, you turn to your village. I'm like, how do I tell my village this? And on top of it.
But also, like, if you've never experienced it, like, I think that's very hard for a village. Like, how can you properly support someone when you've never experienced this? It's the first time you're dealing with it, and really, like, unless you're in the person's body, like I don't know, like, what would have been like the appropriate support? Like, in that situation, like, what would you have wanted from your village?
I don't know.
That's what I mean. Like, it's
I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want sympathy because, like, I wanted to fight. Like, I don't want people to feel bad for me.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not like a sulking party. Like, hey, everyone, let's just come over and,
I'm
like,
trying
just
to think how people could have helped
you. Yeah.
But it's not like it was postpartum where they could have helped you take care of
But it's not like you weren't feeding your kids. It's not, like, I think it would have been different if, like, let's say there was a lack somewhere, right? Like, let's say you weren't able to make dinner. Okay, fine. Your village could bring you a freaking meal. Like, you were very high functioning.
Yeah, I was fully functioning.
Yeah.
Were there days that I couldn't function? Yeah, but we all have, like, I just chalked up to, we all have those days. Like, I was still, that's the problem, is I was still pregnant. I still was a pregnant woman having pregnancy symptoms and, things like that. But I had this other, like I said, it's like when you're pregnant, you're not alone. But I felt like I was like extra not alone. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you were hosting a party.
Oh, I was having, it was, like a Ouija board party is what it felt like for the, and I just remember my dad called a friend of his who works in, like, the maternity area of, like, St. Joseph's Hospital. Wow. He called and he was like, they're saying she has this and blah, 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 blah. And he just said, I'm really sorry to hear she's going through that. And it hit him like, it's real. Oh.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think, like, one day Pat had to go out and I needed somebody to be home with me because we were at a period where they didn't want me home alone with a child. Not that I was going to do something to him, but what if I had, like, you would have these blackout moments where, like, I said it to Emily yesterday, I go, the best way to describe it is you feel like you give the keys to your brain to someone else and you move into the passenger seat and you watch it. So people are like, oh, but were you sad? I go, I wasn't really sad. Like, this wasn't something that I could go to therapy and talk out. Let's talk out my feelings.
Yeah.
Let's talk out.
Yeah, you're just like along for the ride at this point.
I'm just watching what it's doing. And what's coming out of my mouth is like not, and I remember they would say things like he would validate all those little mom guilt things that you have in your head, like that little voice in your head that would say like, you know, oh, you're not a good mom, you're not this. I remember it was like, no, that's the main voice now. That's the main voice. And it's looking for outside sources to validate how you're feeling, like validate these negative things. And then I remember, like, you know, we're talking about the village, and then part of my village turned on me from what I was understanding. Like, the village that I thought I didn't have. I had some of it. I didn't have all of it. And it was like those little sounds, like, you're validating what this guy's saying. And I just remember it was noise. It was so much noise in my head, and I wanted the noises to stop. I wanted quiet. And, you know, then you have a toddler at home. And that's, like, the way I pose it now is being on the other side. Yeah, my house is loud and everything, but it's like, it's the best noise, you know? Like, do I still go nuts when they scream and yell? It's the best noise. Because I had the other side of it, and it was awful. Like, it was awful noise.
Yeah.
Like what you're hearing. And I just remember, like, I would get relief by, like, hurting myself. And it was like little things that you would Google, like, how do you hurt yourself without hurting a baby? How does this not do any damage? And things like that. And I just told you, I would boil water, and I would put my arm on the pot, and I would get burn marks. Okay, this is not related. This is an Instapot accident. This is an Instapot accident. I just want to make that very clear. I should have worn a sweater today. This is really bad.
So don't look at my arm.
I'm very much, it's me versus the steam of the Instapot. But yeah, so I would just put my arm on the rim, and it would obviously hurt, but it would be a little bit of relief. Or I would be working, and I work with hair tools, and I would just tap the curler on my arm, and it would feel good for a minute, because for an hour I got no voices. It's like, oh, I did what it told me to do.
Yeah, you were feeding into, like, those wants.
And my reward was the noise stopped for a bit. And that is how, like, I empathize with people who are suicidal, because it's like that voice in your head. When you give into it, you get rewarded. You almost get rewarded with peace for an hour. And that hour of peace is like you said before, it's like euphoric. Like, oh, for an hour it stops. And that's how we realized with exercise and with working, it was euphoric to me because it would stop temporarily. And I remember I had to go to therapy, but I wasn't going to therapy to talk about how I was kind of like what was going through my head, things like that. I was actually going as a trauma patient, or somebody who was about to enter being a trauma patient. So I was going through the steps of grief because this was going to be my last pregnancy, and it was stolen from me, like, fun.
Yeah.
Like, I have a hard time with that. Yeah. Like, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
No.
You know, like,
doesn't sound fun.
Like, I didn't get to enjoy it. And then, like, you find out you're having a girl and everyone is so happy for you and you're not happy. Like, you're happy, but, like, you don't care. Like, that's how I felt. Like, you just don't care about things, right?
Yeah.
I'm giving into the tissue. Oh my god, I'm giving into the tissue. Like, you just don't care, because, like, there's a part of you being like, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve to be happy. And then, I mean, there's this other taboo aspect where even just putting it out there, people are probably wondering, is there a risk to the baby? I'm carrying a baby for 9 months or 7 months, like, living in
because
trauma.
I feel like they also say, like, you know, don't yell when you're pregnant. That affects the baby. Try to have, like, a low temperament, because that affects the baby. And, like, you're literally in psychosis.
So we had to learn the effects of a baby growing up in just trauma.
Yeah.
All this baby grew up in was trauma. But I was growing, we used to call her, like, She-Hulk, because I was growing a super baby. Her test results were always perfect. And they were telling me, when she is out, there will be effects. There will be some mental health effects. There are going to be effects to her eating. They said she's either going to be, she could be anorexic. She may not want to eat because she was raised in a traumatic environment.
Are they saying, like, her as a newborn?
Yeah. She was automatically, and her, when she was born, we were treated as trauma patients. Because she only knew trauma in her life. She only knew a traumatic environment. So we both were trauma patients. They said she would have difficulty regulating her emotions. Extremely true, by the way.
That
That is really true. Like, she would learn to regulate.
Now, how old is she now?
2.
She's 2. Okay.
And I noticed it with Zach because I'm being told this about her, and it's like you learn, like, they have a harder time regulating. They learn to regulate their emotions. It's a milestone they hit later on in life, right? Their emotions are quite extreme.
Yeah.
You know, you drop a pencil, you might scream, cry about it, but it's like they just don't know how to process their emotions until much later in life. Like, he's getting better at it now because he's turning 6, but it's like, you know, sometimes the emotions don't sync with what's going on, right?
Yeah.
But
which naturally toddlers are already unregulated, but this is obviously, you know, just because of the breeding area.
And I remember we used to call it, like, as a joke, the escape plan. Like, as I say, I would not have been able to do this with my husband.
Aww.
I'm
honestly, like,
I always make fun of her.
But honestly, just
we
like,
love him though. We do
I
love
don't know
him.
We
But
love
like
him.
all husbands, he has his moments, but we love him.
I don't know him, but the fact that
Yeah.
you're getting just emotional, saying how you couldn't
Like,
do it without him, like, it just fills my heart with so much love that you had, like, a partner, like, literally a partner that stood by you.
I just
through
think,
that
like,
hardship.
I put him through hell. Like, come on. I put him through hell. And I just think, like, he stayed. Like, how many men would have stayed?
Yeah.
You know, like, through this. Or, like,
I'm laughing because of my own situation, but yeah. I went through mental health and my husband went this way.
see?
So.
Like, as I'm saying, like.
But yeah, good that he stood by your side.
Oh,
Right? And I remember we used to call it the escape plan. It's like my kids would do a play so many times during that. It's like, okay, like he would just look at me and no, it's not good. And no, I shouldn't have been left alone. But it was better we didn't have the kids there. I would rather, like,
you have to weigh it
I
out.
have to shield a 3 and a, how old was that? Yeah, like an almost 3-year-old and a 5-year-old from this. How do you talk to your kids about mental health? And then I remember we're going through the stages of grief and at therapy, and it was just amazing because the way they pose it to you, and this is it's not your fault. And, you know, whenever somebody says it's not your fault, it's like, oh, I roll, right? You're just telling me that.
Yeah.
And the way she was like, the therapy was meant to empower you. Because if you're empowered, you're gonna wanna fight through this more. So she didn't pose it as, because I was like, I felt so weak. That was what I kept saying, like, this is like a weakness. Like, we are not weak. Women are not weak. You know, we may be seen as that, but we're not. And I said, she said to me, this is your body fighting. Like, you got up today, your body chose to get up.
Yeah.
Okay? Your body turned to your brain and said, F off, I'm getting up today. And she goes, this is your fight. That baby is alive because you're fighting. They said, most women who go through this, their bodies actually end up naturally aborting the baby. Only about 5 to 7% of pregnancies actually make it to the end of this. Either 1, the mom commits suicide, or 2, the body aborts the baby because
it recognizes it like as a threat, like it's causing problems.
It's
like just
because
get rid of it.
The one crazy thing about this is once you give birth, it ends.
Just like
And,
a light
okay,
switch.
so I
you
wanna hear
get
about,
the
like,
keys
that.
back to your
Yeah.
you get the keys back
Is
to
that
your
how
brain.
you felt?
I was told that. Like, it's literally a countdown. You're not doing a countdown to, like, the day your baby's born. You're doing a countdown to the
to
day
feel sane again.
you get your life back. You get your brain, your body back. And I remember they were saying, like, your postpartum journey is going to look so different this time because your postpartum journey is going to be about you. You need to make it about you. You have to go back to dating yourself because for 7 months, you lost you.
Yeah.
You didn't know who you were anymore. Somebody else took over. And now your body has to basically learn, and your brain has to basically learn to talk like Adriana again, walk like Adriana again, do the things Adriana loves. I mean, I was still doing things I loved while I was pregnant. We were going out to eat. I was hanging out with my kids, all that. But it was like somebody else was enjoying it.
Yeah.
So what had happened is, like, fast forward all the, you know, we coasted through the pregnancy. I even remember I got to join some really cool group therapy sessions where I was actually doing group therapy with postpartum women. And I got to talk about how, like, oh, they would say things like they were crying because they didn't feel like they were getting their life back. They were like 6 months in or 8 months in saying, I don't know if I'm ever going to go to a restaurant again. And I'm like, God, I got a reservation tonight. Like, and I got to tell them how I was feeling, like, hey, this is what I'm going through prenatal. And they would be like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't, like, you're swapping stories. And it was so, like,
it was a village because, again, I agree. Like, I feel better when I talk to other moms that can relate. And that's really what this podcast has to do about.
Yeah.
We wanted people to relate to the honest truth about motherhood and that it's not all rainbows and sunshine.
It's not. And it's like, I want to reiterate this. I was not sad. I didn't have time to be sad.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like let me go upstairs and cry about this or things like that. It was, I couldn't, because if I cried or if I was sad, it was working. I was giving in to the thing. So I had to fight. So what they started doing in therapy is started preparing me for the after the birth, because they didn't know how my body was going to react. Would I got into shock? Would I have fainted? They didn't know, because it's a rush that leaves your body. It's all going to leave. How is my body going to react? They said, okay, for 3 weeks you can't hold your baby while standing up, because the one thing that they did say happens is because you're in trauma, your arms shake. And that's true. Your arms shake when you were trying to carry things. So I remember in the hospital, I would sit there, and if I had to carry her, it was on me. And if I had to walk around with her, somebody had to stand next to me like this. Like, somebody had to walk next to me if I wanted to try to walk her around. And I'm thinking, it's my baby. I'm her mother. I can't walk around with her. Nuh-uh, arms. Like, we gotta, like, let's do this. We gotta be strong for each other. Like, I have to hold my baby. This is insane to me.
Yeah, it's like it's mind over matter. It really, like, in that aspect of it, right? Like,
yeah, like it is. I kept saying, like, it is a mental game, but again, it is a mental game, but you're not in control of it. And I mean, it was great because I did get to have some, like, mental health talks with, like, my parents and, like, my mother-in-law, and, like, but it was constantly reiterating, it's not something that happened that is making me feel this way. It is something that has, like, entered my body. A disease is taken over me, and it's going to go away. And I remember she had to be born. Like, it was time. Like, I started getting contractions. I was, like, so excited. I was like, these suck. But, like, that's it. Like, we're at the end. And I remember it was, like, even with our OB, we weren't doing a countdown to her delivery date. It was a countdown to the end. And, like, they get you so excited about her, about birth. And they were making it seem to me like, you are fighting. It's the baby that's doing this to you. Mm-hmm. She's sucking all the hormones. Your body is doing this to keep her alive. How amazing are you that we're now 8 months in, 8.5 months in, and your body hasn't given up.
Yeah.
But throughout this process, I am getting more medication. I'm maxing out medication, so I'm adding on to medications, and I remember, I think I was about 38 weeks pregnant, and I got tired, or 37 weeks, and I got tired. And I just remember it hit me, and I was like, I just don't know if I can fight anymore. I was in the home stretch. I didn't want to be left alone, because I said, I can't fight anymore, and I don't want to be left alone because I am weak right now. Yeah. I didn't go for any more medication increases. I started skipping dosage. My body was done fighting, because, like, when I tell you, when you're going through a mental health thing, the physical toll it takes on your body, and everybody was like, I remember you said in a podcast, people were saying, oh my God, you look amazing. Yeah. Like, you're so fit, da da da. Yeah. I was having a fit pregnancy. I was looking great too. I mean, I was huge, but I was looking great with my, watermelon body, but you know what I mean? But I was done. My body said there was no fight left. And I stopped going for the increases. And then 39 weeks and 6.5 days later, I decided it was time, and I delivered very, very, very quickly. And I just remember crying. And they were like, I mean, the tears come and go, right? I just remember it was like the best feeling, because they're like, you're free. Like, that's all they kept saying is, you're free, you're free, you're free.
Like, it's like, what are
you
like,
and she's here.
But it's on like a celebration. Like,
You're free.
I want to know, did you feel free after you gave birth? Or was like your dark passenger still there? Or did he like just run away?
I
you got out of the car and it kept going.
It was like literally symbolic, okay? It was, I remember they had put her on me. It was funny because I'm about to deliver and they were telling my husband, they're like, you need to give her positive affirmations. And he's like,
what is that?
They're like, tell her like, you're a queen, you're a warrior. And it was a really
You're
young,
Beyonce.
It was a young girl. We don't.
No, not now. I'm sorry. It's just, it's an old habit.
I know. It's like, yeah, like who runs the world, everybody? And I remember he was looking at her, he's like, she knows she's got this. He's like, yay?
He didn't want to do it.
It was so, I know, because we're not that, like, type of, like, we are the type, me and him, it's like, we can just look at each other and we're like, we got this, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to say it to each other.
Yeah.
And it was, like, a very young OB, which was great to have, who was delivering her, and, you know, she came out, we were like, I am woman, hear me roar, and then it was time to cut the umbilical cord, and she says, do you want to do it? And I'm like, my husband, there was no way he was doing it. We didn't, no, we don't do blood, we don't do hospitals. And I remember she's like, do you want to do it? And I was like, what? Is this a thing? And she goes, you know, a lot of the symbolism behind cutting the umbilical cord is like the man, like this is their part. This is them saying, I am freeing you of the pregnancy. Like this is the this is the end. But she goes, but you did it.
Yeah, you really
it
deserve
was
that
you versus
more.
you. I want you to cut it. And they're like, this is gonna be what you need. It's gonna be the adrenaline rush you need to free yourself. It's you and her together. It was the two of us, and that's why I think I have a really good.
I have like goosebumps right
yeah,
now. Like I love this.
I am telling you now, if you ever have the ability to cut your own umbilical cord, do it. Absolutely do it. The adrenaline rush you receive after cutting your own umbilical cord, it is insane.
Wow.
I remember I got up and walked. And they were like, whoa, trauma patient, sit back down. I'm like, no, I feel like
You took it a little bit too far, but
like,
we get the excitement.
I was like, I feel like I can get back on the Peloton right now. I had, gore, I had almost no bleeding. I think, and they had said to me, they even looked and they're like, you don't even look like you just gave birth. Like, downstairs wise. They're like, it sparks, they're saying it's new beliefs that it sparks healing faster. It sparks, it helps with your mental health journey afterwards. It helps to like tame or, hold back on postpartum depression, things like that. And I was like, I just said to my husband, I go, it almost looked like the umbilical cord was cut and I just watched him. It was always a him because, it was all, I watched him just walk out the door.
Wow.
And I just remember in my head, it was like a mental middle finger and to this thing. And I remember watching them walk and I just felt like...
Nobody better take this as a movie plot, okay? She owns the rights.
I do. I'm just
throwing this out there now.
I want like minimum 20%.
Yeah.
Okay? I'll tell you everything.
51.
20%. Yeah. I mean, I got 3 kids to feed.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just remember I was like laying in the bed and I had my head back and it was just like, this feels amazing. Like, this just feels so good. And I just like, I wanted to like scream it from the rooftops. Like, I felt so, so good.
Wow.
And then it was like afterwards you started feeling shaky and they're like, well, you're a trauma patient now. And I had to go on a 36-hour psychiatric hold in the room. I was having, it was also a long weekend, so I couldn't get a lot of the doctors. So I was on a 36-hour psychiatric hold. She was on watch for anorexia and for any like colic, things like that. And she kind of had the opposite problem where she was eating a lot and they thought it was very strange. Before I left, they wanted to go through my 24-hour test with me because they wanted to, let's discuss how the mental health illness affected her.
Yeah.
And one thing we learned is that at the time I didn't go, once I didn't get my medication increases, my umbilical cord started shutting down. So just to show you how like your mental health like affects your body, my body started, like when I said my body was giving up, it was physically giving up.
Wow.
And she was holding on strong with getting limited nutrients, things like that. She was holding on for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And it's like, you have that guilt, but also like, we always think like, maybe I'm a little bit afraid of you. Like, girl, you
can
strong
live in
gonna like go places.
That's
like,
what I know, and yet all she tells me is she wants to be a housewife, and like
Mary
she
Rich.
wants, like, she
Mary,
tells
what
me,
a
like,
smart girl.
I
she
mean,
tells
all
me,
the goals, right?
I mean, Cinderella is
2 years
her
old.
jam
I'm gonna
right now.
marry rich mom.
No, it's
Yeah,
always like,
housewife.
Mommy, are you working today? Yeah. Oh, what are we doing? Are we doing laundry? No. Are we cooking? Are we going grocery shopping? I'm like, that's not work, honey. It is, but it's not.
Don't get paid for it.
But yeah, anyway, so afterwards, I mean, again, I saw a therapist. I had to go for an assessment before I could leave. I remember she was born the Saturday night. Monday was Thanksgiving. And I just remember it was like 4 p.m. on Monday. And I said, is there any way you can get a doctor, a psychiatrist or somebody in here? I really want to go home. I really feel good. They needed to see how bad my hands were shaking, things like that.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, if you promise to like not be alone for a while, or like not really be alone with the baby, not pick her up on your own or walk around with her, we will let you go. Because I'm like, school, I don't want my kids to not go to school tomorrow on Tuesday. I want to start my routine. I want to start my life. They gave me the tools to handle postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And I'm not diminishing postpartum depression, but having gone through that, I already had the toolbox to manage the postpartum depression.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
was I sad? Yes. But I could talk to myself about it.
You know
Like,
what to do. You know
let's
how to
go.
cope.
We had the list of questions to ask. We have the things to talk about. We have the list of things to go be thankful for. The paranoia kicked back in. You know, it's a paranoia where you like constantly think that your kids are going to die.
Yeah.
You know, something bad's
Yeah, I
going to
had
happen
that
to
too.
you. You know, but that's a lot more common than people think, and I just think that no one wants to talk about it because they're so worried about what people like.
Or like,
Yeah.
Why are you
intrusive
thinking about?
thoughts.
Why are you thinking about your kid's death for? Because something is telling me like that's the most important thing on
Yeah.
my mind. Like you
Yeah.
grew this thing for 9 months, you want to keep it alive. It's not a
Yeah.
houseplant.
Yeah.
You know, like seriously, it's
Yeah.
not. So I mean, I have now when I look back on it, it was like it was hard. It changed who I was.
Of
Like
course.
I wouldn't expect
No,
it not to. Like, how do you just go back to be like, da, da, da,
No,
da, 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 like,
I mean sometimes I do, but like I'm not. I am a happy person, but is there bitterness there? Absolutely. When I see people going through like really happy pregnancies, like I'm so happy for them,
yeah.
but I'm sad for myself. But again, it's not a pity party. It's like
yeah.
I always think like maybe I went through it because I could handle it, and like maybe I can help somebody one day go through it. Like there's a reason I came out on the other end of it. Maybe my kids are meant to do like absolutely amazing things, right? Like there's a reason we're here.
I had someone say to me recently, based on like my own episode and what I went through, say like God only gives like the hardest battles to the people that He knows that can rise above it.
Yeah.
So God knew that you could rise above this. He knew that you could handle what was coming.
And
your
now
way.
Gianna is going to probably be an actual female prime minister because the other one was temporary.
I'd literally be scared of her running a country. She'd be like, free manicures for everybody. It's
I love her.
All right, everyone get your vote in now.
Free nails.
The next election, just put
Vote.
Gianna.
But
Make a box.
You know, it's like it made me appreciate like my little house, my little family so much more. It's like we went through this together, and it's like we came out on the other side. Like what I love how strong my family unit is, and I will say this: I appreciate like my in-laws, and I appreciate like my parents for kind of going along with this journey, like this ride.
Yeah, 'cause it was definitely new for them too.
It was
right?
new.
So-
It was new. I would say that. Like, and I think I remember like my dad came over one day and he just couldn't stop staring at me. I'm like, yes, and he's like, "Is it here?" I'm like, and he was like, so scared. I'm like, it's not like an.
He's like looking around the room.
yeah, he's just staring at me. He's like, "Is it
over
here?"
there?
I'm like, he didn't.
I felt the draft and didn't walk by me.
And I was like,
That's
and I just,
so funny.
and I just
oh
said
my
to him, I'm like,
gosh.
we can talk about other things. He's like, but is it here? I'm like, don't worry, Dad, it's not here. And he's like,
It
okay.
doesn't want you anyways.
And I was
You're
like,
fine.
it's not here, Dad, don't worry. I'm like, he's like, okay. I'm like, it's in the family room. And he's like, and I just remember like, he just like,
now you're just fucking with people.
no, but it was because I was pregnant. I was still
Yeah.
pregnant. And I just remember my aunts came over one day because my husband had to go downtown. They said, okay, we'll come over. We'll come hang out with you. And I was postpartum, and there is a period of time where it comes back. but it's not as strong and it's manageable, but like you still start seeing things
Yeah.
again. It's like a 3-week period,
Yeah.
right? I think she was maybe 3 or 4 weeks at the time. It lasts 21 days and then it goes away again. So I knew it was like, oh, we're only dealing with it for 3 weeks.
At this point, it's manageable.
And I just remember I was staring off in the corner and I was looking at it, and I remember I was like, I was nodding my head, I was shaking my head, things like that, and my aunt's like, what is there? What's going on?
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you want to know or you want close notes? And she said, no, tell me. I want to know. Like, what is it that you're going through right now? And I explained it to her, and she just started crying. I'm like, why are you crying? Like, what's wrong? She goes, I can't believe, like, you're serious. I go, I am serious. Yeah. But she goes, but you're saying it so stern. And I guess because this is my everyday life.
Yeah. At
like,
this point,
you
it's
cope.
not,
like,
it's not causing you fear.
Like, it's weird to you, but it's not to me.
Yeah.
It's not. And, you know, last week I was talking to a bride of my client, and we were doing the joke about how Italians don't believe in mental health, and like the older generation, and she is in mental health, and I had said, she asked if I had an experience with it, and I briefly told her, and she said she deals with people with schizophrenia, and she said there's a big connection with schizophrenia and prenatal psychosis.
Yeah.
And she goes, a common reason why people end up killing themselves is because they just want the noise to stop. And that's what people don't understand. It's not that you're sad, not necessarily you're sad or things like that. It's because the noises become too much for you to handle.
Yeah.
And I just think back to the time with Zach when I was pregnant, and I like hit my head, and I was like, yeah, I just wanted the noises to stop.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like there was any other way of getting the noises to stop.
Yeah.
It's wild, right? And now it's like and I will say we did talk to our kids about mental health, because I had an episode in front of the kids where I was not there, and I remember I said to my therapist, like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm worried I'm scaring them. They're so young. And she goes, we're going to talk about mommy feelings, and, you know, and then maybe it's going to you're going to start talking to your kids about their feelings, so you can talk to them about yours. And I remember, like, Noah, we wake up in the morning, okay, how are we feeling today? And he made this thing in school where you would, like, move this bee to talk about, are you sad, are you happy, are you excited,
like
are you nervous?
The 4 zones. Yeah.
Yeah. And we would go, and he would say, I'm happy today. And I'm like, you know what, mommy's happy today, but I feel a little bit like this. And we would move the beat up and down. And that's how we started talking. And they were very aware, he was at least, of, like, what I was going through. Kind of. We didn't tell them that there was, like, this little person or thing that was talking to, because we didn't want to scare him. And but we would say to him, like, you know, this is just sometimes, you know, the baby is taking so much from mommy that they get really tired. And, you know, when we're tired, we do some, like, really silly things, right? Like, when you're tired, you might cry more. When you're tired, you do this. So mommy's body's very tired. Oh, mommy, how come you don't sleep then? Maybe you need to sleep. But you know what? Mommy also needs to work, and that's the thing about being like an adult. A parent is sometimes you have to do things not because your body wants you. Your body is telling you to do one thing. You have to do another because that's what makes sense for your family.
Yeah.
Right? You know?
We put ourselves on the back burner to take care of the kids and what needs to actually get done.
We do, and then that's why postpartum, they were like, you can't do that. You have to prioritize you. You have to get to know yourself because you already lost you. There's no way of getting you back if you don't start dating yourself again and things like that. Yeah. I went back to work after 4 days.
Yeah, I remember you saying you went back.
I went back to work after 4 days because they said this is going to be the best thing for your mental health because you're not entering that period of, you know, when you're home for so long and you start losing, you just become mom. They're like, you can be mom, but you have to keep the other facets of your life going. I was still getting my nails done.
Yeah.
Still, you know, going out, still seeing people. I had they would come to me, obviously, but, you know, I had a newborn attached to me. They're like, don't let it stop you from
living your life.
And they said, you know, keep running your business. And I remember she was born. I had cut the umbilical cord. And they said, okay, you have to wait here for an hour. And I asked my husband for my laptop. And I was like, well, I mean, I might as well. Get
right back on that horse.
I didn't really get to finish emails. I had to stop to give birth. And
yeah.
I just went back to it. And they said, that's what we want. We want you to continue your life like you had a toddler. Like your life shouldn't really change too much. maybe you're not going out as much without your babies, but like
Yeah.
you need to do things with that.
Yeah.
Still, like don't.
Yeah.
So it was great. So I actually feel like my postpartum was the best this time. Despite it all.
Because your was not.
I literally was back to work, and I did that solid working maybe 3 days a week for a month.
Yeah.
And then I hit slow season, so I was down to like 1 or 2 days, but it was great. And she bonded really well with my husband. She bonded with our parents, and she didn't have a choice because I had to work. And it was. I would say if postpartum, I think, was the best.
Yes, it was the pre.
Because I immediately felt like myself again. I didn't have that period of, who am I? What do I like? I went back to immediate, like, oh yeah, this is the things I like. These are the things I like to enjoy. Whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like what Emily said. The dark passenger drove away as soon as.
Yeah.
We were not sad to see you go. But yeah, I don't know. Is there questions?
We covered a lot.
It's
that
dark.
Yeah.
Like it's. I appreciate you guys wanting to talk about it. It's dark.
People are going to leave this feeling something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like whether even if they thought like maybe they were like, oh my god, maybe that's what I was going through when I was pregnant, but we're too scared to talk about it. Or maybe, oh geez, I am pregnant now. Maybe I should actually speak to someone about
That's
how
what
I
it
feel.
is.
You know, like don't let it doesn't have to be to like this extreme. Whatever you're feeling at any point, whether you're pregnant, postpartum, a year or two after, regardless, pregnant, not pregnant, whatever, like the takeaway here is definitely be an advocate for yourself. Recognize that something doesn't feel right and talk to someone, whether that's a doctor, whether that's your like there are things there. Unfortunately, sometimes the systems are very broken.
Yeah.
But there's ways. And I think you did an amazing job telling your story.
Yeah.
We learned a lot. I know
think you learned a little bit about me today.
Well, not even just that. I knew some of it.
Yeah.
You didn't know the extreme of it.
Yeah.
But it's something that a lot of people, like you said, like some people unfortunately take their own lives. And if this can reach someone who can save a life,
yeah.
that's,
and that's the thing too, is like I just want to make it clear, like I'm not here for sympathy. Like, it sucks.
No.
It sucks, and it's a disease.
No, this
right?
is an
Like,
important
it's
story
not-
from getting the wrong doctors to getting the right doctors. This story, your life has portrayed so much to so many people that I think it doesn't matter what your background is, you're going to take something from it.
Yeah, the way I always said it, because it's like, I have to fight. Do I have a choice? I said it to our OB. I go, when people get cancer, do they just say, okay, cool, that's it? No, they fight.
Yeah.
So this, like, that's what she was trying to say. It is a disease. It's not you. It's not like series of events in your life have happened that caused you to become like this or to get like this. This is a disease. So the way you would fight any other disease,
exactly.
Why wouldn't you fight
Exactly,
this?
and that's
Right?
really
Like,
the ultimate takeaway here. That we need to move away from the stigma of mental health. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It is an illness, and it needs to be treated as an illness.
Yeah.
You're not any more superior if you just trek through it because you're still miserable. So just work through it properly.
Yeah. Like, do you want to do it all the time? No. Do you want to have days where you stay in your room and cry all day and like, oh, woe is me? Sure, but like, it's not progressive. So, I mean, like you said, I hope if one person listens to this and is like, oh shoot, this is how I'm feeling, maybe I need to tell my OB to it.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get more than one person listening.
Yes.
And I think
thank you so much.
We're so happy to have you. Thank you for
that
this.
was amazing.
And like we ended laughing and smiling.
See, it's full circle. It's full circle. We had all the emotions. It was full circle. It was a beautiful chat.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be an important one that people are really going to enjoy.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
See you next
See
time.
you next time.